Hello and welcome back to our coverage of the Africa Cup of Nations. I'm James Vassina, and again with me here tonight are both Tando Sabia. Good evening to Tando. And to my left is Andreas Evagora. Good evening, Andreas. We've got two more games to come and to speak about tonight. Here are the results that have come through from today's games. First, Egypt beat Benin 3-1 in what looked like a clear win in the scoreline. We'll get to that in just a minute. And after that, Nigeria beat Mozambique 4-0. Well, as always, we're going to begin with the latest. Nigeria showing no mercy in a one-sided game against Mozambique. The Super Eagles putting on a show of force in front of their fans in Fez tonight as they set the tone early on. 4-0, the biggest result so far in the competition. And let's head to Fez now and speak to Selina Sykes, who's there for us. Selina, Nigeria's line of attack getting the job done very easily tonight. Is that right?
That's right, James. The Super Eagles attacker soaring here this evening in Fez. They absolutely overwhelmed Mozambique. Their attacking prowess was on full display. They showed how they mean to go on with that goal that was called out for offside at the beginning of the match before they opened the scoring with Admula Lookman opening the scoring in the 20th minute. An excellent curling shot from him before Victor Osimhen doubled the scoring going into the break. Then after half-time, the goal Fessa continued for Nigeria. Another goal from Osimhen for just 3 minutes after the break. Tap in from him, a bit of an excellent play with Lookman bursting into the box to basically put it up on a plate for Osimhen to get a goal just outside with a short-range shot on goal. That was his third goal in the competition so far, and that's not where it ended, of course, because Akol Adams had an excellent shot to close the scoring for Nigerians. 4 goals for him to add a goal to his 2 assists. Lookman also getting 2 assists here today. Alex Obi was also excellent, providing a lot of creativity on the left flank. You mentioned it, James. Obviously, that's the first time we've seen 4 goals at this AFCON. Nigeria now have 12 goals after 4 matches. They have the best attack in the competition so far. A statement performance for them as they look to win a 4th AFCON title. Obviously, banish the demons of the last AFCON when they lost out in the final against Ivory Coast. It's quite incredible, really, to realise that this team did not reach the World Cup.
Yeah, indeed, and they definitely weren't bothered by that from what it looks like in today's match in any case. And it's quite surprising, Tando, to think that, I mean, they did have that disaster coming into AFCON, but they've grown. And tonight, they were up, as Selina said, 4-0 in the end. They were up 2-0 by the 25th minute, but they just kept pushing throughout the game.
And this time, for the first time, a clean sheet. So something's working with the defence. I do think that the midfield ducked a little bit deeper, assisting the defence, and we could see that today. So you could see that Nobali wasn't left wanting. And so I think it was a good game for this Nigerian side. Also, you can say that the opponents were a little bit easier compared to the previous games that we've seen. It looked like it was more of a Nigerian fest in this game, especially attacking-wise. There were so many more opportunities. I do think that the scoreline could have even reached 7 if Nigeria had it their way. I think also the pairing that has been happening, the interchanging that's been happening in the Nigerian attack side has been something worth of a marvel, you know. I think also anyone can work around Victor Osimhen and also seeing his positioning. He was the clear number 9, something that we saw yesterday Lau Foster for South Africa struggled to do. But every time that he got the crosses, he was in the perfect position to shoot it right into the net. And so I do think that was great. Lookman also had a fantastic game. He is the provider. Even in that goal by...
What was it? We had
the last game by Akol Adams. There we go. The last goal by Akol Adams.
In which Lookman provided the assist.
Exactly. I think the way that he provided it, he could have easily taken the shot for himself. But we did see that earlier in the game, he did try to take a few strikes and they didn't necessarily quite get into the back of the net. So I think it's also just having that maturity in the game and understanding that, you know what, if I'm striking and I can't make it through, let me provide, and then it gets through, because it is a team game and it's not an individual sport.
Great link-ups indeed that we saw happen tonight. You mentioned that everyone got what they wanted. Victor Osimhen got 2 goals tonight, but did he really get everything he wanted, Andres? Because there was some frustration later on in the game in the second half. Something going on between him and Lookman.
Yeah, it was just after the hour mark when Lookman probably should have passed to Osimhen. It was 3-0 at the time. But this just shows the attitude of Nigeria. Osimhen was furious he didn't get the ball. He was really in the face of his teammate Lookman and needed Reinaldo, the Mozambique player, to separate the two. But that really was indicative of the attitude of Nigeria tonight. They didn't just want to beat Mozambique. They wanted to pummel them. They wanted, as Thando was saying, 5, 6, 7. And that's unusual because normally the game was won after an hour. And normally in this kind of situation, they're thinking about the next game and taking it easy. Not Nigeria. They got 3 really good forwards that we talked about. They're all at the peak age, mid-late 20s. And it's going to take really a lot to stop Nigeria.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot. You say indeed that, they wanted more, and it is what you want to see in a team. But could this be something, though, a bit dangerous? Because the way that that we could see Osimhen just go up to Lookman, and he was angry, as you say, he was shouting. There's 3 yellow cards in here as well. Can that be something of a concern? If we try and look at some of the points of concerns for Nigeria who are going forwards, could discipline, because the discipline, we saw that happen in earlier games, they crumbled. This time around, they were 3-0 up, and they missed out on some big opportunities in that way. Is there still a little bit of this, all right, we're up, we're comfortable, and we're just going to let ourselves go, and they need to stay a little bit more just square towards the end of the game? Is that something that's important to know?
They definitely need to be disciplined. The locker room cannot fall apart, because if that happens, then it's goodbye. We saw it in 2010 in South Africa with France. We've seen it many times before. Victor Osimhen does have a reputation for getting a little bit too big for his boots. And so I do think that's something that definitely needs to be worked on. Coach Eric Schell looks like he can be somebody who can handle, because prior to him, just before that, there was a short spell of a technical staff who had to step up to the coaching position. And that was prior to Coach Raw, who's now coaching Benin, the Benin side. And he was let go by the NFF because he couldn't control there was lack of discipline in the locker room for the Nigerian side. And I do think that that's definitely something that they struggle with. You have a lot of players who are reputable in their respective sides, who are playing abroad and everything. But I do think that that's something the Nigerian side would struggle with versus perhaps a Cameroon side or perhaps a Senegalese side. And maybe it's because of mentorship. Maybe it's lacking in that department where players can't be bigger than the name. If you have Sadio Mane, who's playing alongside you when you're 21 years old, and then you also have a senior, even higher than that, who's a legend of the team, who's coming in to have a mentorship position. It plays a role in how you behave, you carry yourself in the tournament. And so I do think that the mentorship is definitely going to be something. JJ Okocha should come in, lead the guys. I don't think that it's fair that you have only Victor Osimhen being the star player on the pitch and off the pitch as somebody to be looking up to. I was looking for Ndidi, a little bit of more activity and more presence and leadership as a captain in the game in that kind of situation, to step up and maybe calm the situation. But I do think that it might be a little bit deeper, because if you can do that on the pitch where everyone can see it, what's happening at training, what's happening back at the hotel, what's happening, and that's something that definitely should be looked at.
You're right. Yeah, you're definitely right to say that. It could be fragile in that way. So important to keep everything glued together. Nigeria are going to have to wait until tomorrow to find out who they will face in the quarterfinals, as will Egypt, who earlier today beat Benin 3-1. Marwan Atia, Yasser Ibrahim and Mohamed Salah all finding the net for the Pharaohs. But the scoreline isn't all it seems. Jordan Dosu scored for Benin in the 83rd minute, bringing the score to 1 apiece and taking the game into extra time. Here's Benin's manager, Gernot Rohr, speaking just after the game.
It was a big fight. It was a good game. I think we should go normally to penalty and then all would be possible. But the difference has been made on a corner kick. They played with 3 and a wonderful header for the second goal. The third goal for me doesn't count because everybody was forward to equalize. It was a good game. I'm proud of my team.
Benin manager speaking there. Andres, as he mentions, the second goal, the goal that led on to, of course, pretty much the win, came from a set piece. Without that, Egypt were struggling later on in the game. How impressed? What were your impressions from Egypt?
Struggling a little bit. Right at the start, Benin lost their best player, Tosin, who was their also their best forward, and I was really struggling to see where Benin would get a goal. As you were saying, Atia, he hasn't scored a goal for 3 years in his career. He's never scored for Egypt. And it was a brilliant finish. I mean, it was a brilliant finish from the edge of the box. And I thought, that's it. There's no way Benin are coming back. But then El Shenawi, who's normally very reliable, made not one but 2 errors, something that's a bit of a concern going through to the rest of the tournament. And Egypt getting those 2 goals, a looping header, and then Mo Salah right at the end. So a little bit of a struggle going through, but they are through. And defensively, I think they're pretty strong. Salah looks to be getting better and better. And of course, he's looking to win his first ever AFCON. So plenty of
it's not the first time he's giving that one a try. No, definitely one of the best defences that we saw out there. Benin were really struggling. I mean, they were tired at the end. They had less to lose, let's say, than Egypt in this because of pressure that Egypt had in there. But Egypt going forward, we've got Trezeguet out injured, Mohamed Hamzi as well in defence. Let's see, of course, what happens later on. But do you see the Egyptian side, Tando, as still being able to function in the way that they did tonight? Further on, of course, we've got to wait to find out who they're going to be up against. But do you feel that this is a team that is indeed growing as things go by?
Yeah, it looks like they're finding their feet as they advance in the competition, which is an advantage for them. It seems like the more that they play together at this level of football or of the tournament, and the more that they advance together, it seems that there's more confidence in one another as players. Because I do think that as much as they can be a team sport, it's very important that, yes, we're all star players, but when we come together as a team, can we bring out results? And that brings more confidence that I can actually work with you. And that's what reinforces the locker room relationship, but also the synergy that they have versus what we were speaking about earlier on with Nigeria. I do think that here there seems to be a little bit more discipline. There's no hierarchy in terms of who's better where and who's providing what for who. And so I do think that sometimes the dynamics that happen off the pitch or off the pitch of the main event is so important. And it looks like there is a disciplinarian in the Egyptian coach, and it looks like they have a good synergy working. So I think if they can keep it up, they can advance a little bit further in the tournament. Yeah,
it's only their second goal they've let in so far. So just a hugely important stat, of course, moving forward. The last batch of the round of 16 games will be taking place tomorrow, and what a show it's set to be on the final day. Coming up first is Algeria versus DR Congo, and after that, the defending champions Ivory Coast will face Burkina Faso. Let's start with the earlier game. This will be the first time that we'll watch the two face off at this level of the competition, Algeria versus DR Congo. Simple question, Andreas, is this going to be the most exciting game of the competition so far?
I think it'll be the closest because there's very little between the two teams. Algeria have managed to rotate. In the last game, they rested a lot of their big players. I think that might be a big difference because remember, DR Congo really went for that win. They wanted to top their group, probably with an eye to avoiding Algeria. Algeria is a youngish side. Of course, they got Mahrez, who's their talisman, but they've got a lot of good players around him. I think it's going to be really close. I won't be surprised if this goes to penalties, James.
Yeah, you talk about Mahrez. Let's take a listen to what Mahrez has to say just going into this game. Here he is.
Oh, I don't think we can talk about being favorite or not because we had a good group stages, but now we have to take game by game, and we have a big game already in a few days. So we have to make the job and take it step by step.
It's clear that the match against Algeria will be a good showcase, especially for the DR Congo national team. That said, we're not fixating on that. For us, the most important thing is to keep improving. We've shown over quite a few matches that we're progressing on the field, and I hope that will continue tomorrow. But yes, Algeria is, in a sense, the perfect opponent to demonstrate and validate the progress we've made over the past several months, even years.
So yes, Algeria were above their opponents in their last games, and even going into this, of course, coming into it, it's going to be tough for both sides, as we said. But you'd argue, though, that Algeria have yet to have a proper test, and we've spoken about this, but tomorrow is going to be the real test, and that's going to be something else against DRC, right?
Yeah, this is definitely going to be it. DRC have a very strong front line, and the first line in the midfield is also quite solid. And so I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to penetrate through to get those chances. But with an experienced forward like Riyad Mahrez, who's actually the second of Algeria's top goal scorers on the record right now. So he's looking to push it up, and there's a lot of milestones that everyone is reaching for in this one. Also, another one to look out for is to see the return of Shogi, who walked off in that game against Burkina Faso with a hamstring injury, which was something that he had prior to the tournament. And so I think that was something that did change the tempo of the game, because we did see Mahrez coming off and looking unpleased in that game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work around that to bring that in so that they can solidify the defense, because DRC is also a very strong attacking side, as much as they're strong in defense as well. So they're not going to be the easiest opponents, and it's definitely going to be something tantalizing to see.
It's going to be a great game to watch. That one is. Well, as mentioned, it'll also be Ivory Coast versus Burkina Faso to face Egypt. After that, the defending champions who will be trying to, of course, retain their crown. It's not going to be easy, says their manager. We'll be back tomorrow night to debrief everything after those games. Thank you to both of you, Tando and Andreas, and we'll be back, as mentioned, tomorrow night, and see you at the same time tomorrow then. Good night.